Hey everyone, my name is Russell Brunson. I'm here with Robbie Summers, and we're excited to bring you guys some really cool stuff. This is obviously, as you know, the Millionaire Incubator training course. And what we're going to be talking about in this DVD and throughout the whole course is basically kind of how to set up your own little mini call center. And some of the background, we set up our first call center, how many years ago was that now?
Gosh, it's been about 5-6 years ago.
5 or 6
6 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, we decided to launch a call center. We started building it, and met Robbie. He had a ton of experience doing it, so we hired and brought him up. And within a year and a half or so, we built a huge sales floor with over 60 people, doing well over $100,000 a week, and had just made a ton of money together. And then the economy shifted. We decided that we didn't want a call center, and the whole thing kind of went away. And for a couple of years, we didn't do any kind of back-end phone sales at all. And after a couple of years, I really missed that part of our business, missed the hundreds of thousands of dollars a week we were missing out on, and thought, how can we do this again, but without having the 60 salespeople? And we spent a lot of time, and on my side, I spent a lot of time working on the front end, like how do we create and structure a funnel to really weed out all the people so we can do similar numbers with a lot less people. And we had something built that I thought was pretty good, and we set it up and we ran it for about a month. We generated about 100 leads or so. We had 2 salespeople trying this thing out. I took out our old scripts we had, we dusted them off, and they went to work. And in an entire month, they closed 1 deal. And I was like, man, this is harder than I remember it being. And so I called Robbie up one day, and I was like, hey man, just was curious if you'd be willing to come in and spend a couple hours training the 2 little salespeople we have on the old scripts that we were using and how it, and see what could happen. And luckily Robbie came in, spent about 4 hours with our little mini sales team, and the next day they did $36,000 in sales. Next week did $67,000 in sales, and we haven't looked back since. And so, and again, we're doing those kind of numbers with a very small team, and that's kind of why this whole product came about. Everyone started asking us like, what are you doing? How are you doing the similar numbers that you were doing 60 people with 2 or 3 people, and that's why we decided to put this course together. So we're grateful. I'm grateful to have Robbie here, and we're going to be going through this DVD. This part of it, we're going to be talking about all the call center setup, and so this DVD is really for you, the entrepreneur. The other DVDs are going to be a lot more specific to the salespeople, and we'll talk about that as we go through. But Robbie, thanks for being here, and excited to have you, and excited to go through this.
Awesome, thanks Russell. Excited to be here as well, and we've got some neat things that we're going to talk about today, and really a great way to help you guys build and grow your business and to make additional money. And as Russell was talking about, one of the things that we did initially is we had a huge call center. And there are so many headaches that come with a huge call center. It's not even funny how many, you get a room full of 60 salespeople, and they're all prima donnas, and they've all got their own egos, and they all think they need to be doing things their own way. And it can be an incredible headache for Russell, for me, for our entire team to be able to build that and grow that. And so here, we've got a picture of a huge call center, and this is exactly what we don't want to have. Is a bunch of people trying to do things their own way, a bunch of egos going their own way, just a very small directed group of people that can produce big numbers. And the great thing about that is that for you as the entrepreneur, it's going to make you a lot of money, and it's also going to give that opportunity for just those 2 people to make a lot of money as well. And so it really creates a great win-win situation for everybody that's involved with this mini call center. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to talk about Vince Lombardi. He's one of my all-time heroes. I loved playing football, did a lot of different things with that, but Vince Lombardi, for anybody who doesn't know, was probably the greatest NFL football coach of all time. And when he was coaching the Green Bay Packers, and he was the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, we've got professional football players, the very best football players in the world at that time. At the beginning of training camp, he would walk in to the room with these professional players. They played Pop Warner football, they played high school and junior high football and college football, been playing football in the NFL for a number of years, and he'd walk in and he'd say, now notice I've got my Boise State football. Russell and I I was going to bring a full-size football, but I didn't have one that was Boise State. So Russell and I, we're big Boise State fans, but Vince Lombardi would walk into the room with the football players, and he'd say, hey guys, this is a football. And he would go and he'd walk out and he'd say, this is the football field. These are the goalposts. This is the goal line. And he would start with the very, very basics of teaching people how to play football. And which seems really odd because some of you guys might have a lot of experience already doing sales. And even with that said, maybe even you guys have some sales guys. That's good. That's wonderful. We're going to start with some very basic things. We're going to talk about things that are going to help you to build and grow your business. And maybe even some things that if you've already done a little bit of a sales call center, or you've already got some sales guys, maybe some things to go back and to take a look at, or some things to add into your current process. And if you don't have it, if you don't have a clue, and I'm sitting here and saying, hey, this is a football, or hey, this is how you set up a call center, we're right in the right place right there. So the very first thing that we're going to talk about, that setting up a call center, it's not a difficult thing to do if you have the right things put in place. There's some bare essentials, some necessities, some things that you've got to have. The very first thing is you've got to have leads. And Russell is going to talk about this, he talks about it in the other DVDs. But the way that Russell is driving in leads, and he's taught you guys how to drive in leads, is incredible, because what it's doing is it's weeding out what took us, 60 guys and 3,000 leads. Now it's, hey, we're getting 30, 40 leads a week. 2, 3 guys handle that and are able to produce the same amount of money because they're weeding all the people that aren't good out on the front end. Yeah. And so it's incredible what Russell's doing with these leads and how they're driving them in. Now, this is going to sound silly. Next thing you need is you need phones, guys. I was calling leads once for somebody and went and talked to him and said, hey, I need phone numbers on these leads. You need leads with phone numbers. You need phones. We are calling out to people. Again, we're going to be talking about some things that are going to be pretty basic. The next thing that you've got to have, and I think this is critical. There's a lot of different headsets that you can get. This is a headset that I picked up at Staples for 20 or 30 bucks. You can get more advanced ones, get wireless headsets. That's actually what I use most of the time, is a wireless headset. Something that keeps me in the zone of who I'm talking to, and that they can hear me and communicate, and then I can move around. I've called on the phone before where I've got to hold that up, the receiver to my ear, and that's a difficult thing to do because I'm very animated, and even though they can't see me on the other end of the phone, they can feel me. And they can understand that I'm passionate and I'm emotional about the things that I'm doing. A headset allows me to be able to do that. The last thing that you've got to have, and this is something that is really, really critical, is you've got to have superstar salespeople. And there's some very particular ways that we can talk about how to drive in and find those superstar salespeople, and that's really what we're going to talk about. But in order to have those salespeople, you've got to have some things that are set up and in place, and I call these specific measurable results. Stephen R. Covey kind of talks about always having results, being results driven, and the things that you're looking for as you're building and growing this your call center. You want to create a compelling scorecard. People, and especially salespeople, they play differently when they're keeping score. I don't know if you guys have ever been out playing with your kids and maybe you go bowling and you say, gosh, we're not going to keep score today. It doesn't matter. But if I go, Russell, and we go bowling, okay, we're keeping score, aren't we? Russell, if you and I, we've gone down to the mat, and maybe it wasn't the mat, but we've wrestled a couple of times, and I know how many times you've thrown me around, and you know how many times we're keeping score.
I never forget that. Yeah. I saw people I've wrestled years and years ago, and in my head I still know if I'm up or down. Anyway, I'm a big scorekeeper.
It's so critical because, and we're going to talk about this, the types of people that you want as salespeople, they're going to have that mentality, that attitude, and people react differently when you're keeping score. So your scoreboard, and I'm going to show you a picture of what your scoreboard should look like. There's a few things that it should do on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and an annual basis. Okay, you need to know where we're at right now today. Where am I at on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Where am I at monthly? Where am I at annually? I want to know where I'm at, what I've accomplished, what I've achieved, and how far ahead or how far behind I am the next guy in front of me or behind me. It's important for them to see that and to have it in a place that's visual, that they can know and understand what that looks like. The second thing is where we want to be. we can sit here and we can talk about goals, and we can do a whole training and spend days talking about goals and how to set goals. Fact of the matter is that they have to know and understand what it is that you're looking for, where they want to be and what they want to accomplish, and when we need to be there. It's got to be specific. We've got to have those measurable results. So this scorecard, the scoreboard, and this is something you get set up and you get it in place before you even hire somebody, is it should be someplace that's visible, identify if things go off track and how to get them back on track if corrective action need to be taken. Now, Russell, you remember that, you remember our boards and what they look like?
I
And
do remember that.
our call center, if you look on the left-hand side, we've got, everybody, and we had a number of these boards that were hanging up around our office with the 60 guys, and each and every day we would come in and this is what I produced on Monday, this is what I produced on Tuesday, throughout the entire week, this is where the company is at, this is what my goal is at, would be on the right side for that week. And we had a whole nother separate scoreboard that we would use as far as where people were at annually and monthly, and would break it down so that they knew how and why they were producing. And Russell, you remember when we had that sales floor, when you would walk down on the sales floor, what would everybody want to show you?
Their numbers.
Let
me show you. Check this out.
Look at the scorecard, Russell. Look at the scorecard. They want to see it. They want other people to see it, and they want to brag about it. And having the scorecard right up there in front of everybody is a great thing. Now, on the flip side too, somebody whose numbers aren't great, and say it's halfway through the week, gosh, all of a sudden they see everybody else on the floor is doing great. Yeah. They're embarrassed, and whatever it takes to get those numbers up, they're willing to do it. And so having a scorecard, and this is very simple, very easy to look at. We've got our blue and orange tape is what we use, just on a whiteboard that we got at I think we got at Home Depot. Yeah, they were
like
cheap.
$5. Yeah.
And every week we would erase it, and then we would keep an Excel spreadsheet and we'd post that up. As far as where people were on an annual basis and monthly and things of that nature, we'd call it a 6-week rolling average, where they're at. And those are the things that we would look at, because either I know I need to do better because I see everybody else in the company is doing great, or I'm doing great and I'm top and I can, top guy, and I can walk around with my chest puffed out, and when the owner comes down, I'm like, hey guy, look at this.
I'm number one, you know that, right?
It's so critical to have that scorecard and have that up in front of everybody for them to see and understand where we're going. The other great thing too is especially after you've hired a couple of people, there's nothing better than looking at hiring that third person and walking in and saying, hey, look, Robbie this week, he's made $2,000 because this is our commission scale. And Kimberly, she's made $1,500, and Troy's made $3,000 this week. All of a sudden, what it does is, as new people come in, it's not just so you're telling me that you make a lot of money. No, I'm showing you that people here make a lot of money, and it reinforces that in their mind when you have a new guy come into the office.
That's one of the big keys, I think, of finding superstars. Is a superstar doesn't really want to normally come in like build a new thing. They want to come in and be like, wow, I can tap into this and jump right in and start making money today.
And is there anything better than immediate validation?
Yeah.
And to sit down and say, so who's this Robbie guy? Well, he's that guy over there, and he barely graduated from high school in Emmett, Idaho, okay? And he's making $3,000 this week, okay? Or whatever it is, that people see that and they look at it and they say, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it. That immediate validation, it comes in, and by having that scorecard, that scoreboard put up somewhere, whether you've got one sales guy, you look at where they're at, where they want to be, and what we need to do to get on course, or whether you've got 60 sales guys, that if they look at that and they see that and they know where the scorecard is at, it makes a world of difference.
Okay, so before we go on, I want to talk really quick for a second about one of the core things I think that drives motivation and gets people throughout the week moving forward, and it's kind of the way we used to do our sliding sales structure, and we still do it today, and I think it's one of the most powerful ways to really motivate people and to get them to continually produce week in, week out, and hit the goals and the numbers that all of us want. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about that concept.
Well, the best way to do that, Russell, it's with the commission scale that you have with your salespeople. And every time we do a commission scale, that what happens is it's a sliding commission scale. And every single week, your commission scale, it starts over. One of the best things about the industry, and one of the worst things too, because you have a great week, and all of a sudden that's all erased and you're starting back. But gosh, even top performers occasionally have a bad week, and it's sure nice to be able to erase that as well, the bad week. But the thing that drives them is that things are paid on a sliding scale, and so what would happen is I would start out, each and every week at 0 and at a 10% commission. And as I make sales, my commission would increase, and it would be retroactive. So let's say that first of all, I've got to get $5,000 in sales, and from 0 to $5,000 in sales, I'd get paid 10%, or I'd make $500. Okay, from 5,000 to 6,000, and it'd be different for everybody, but it goes to 12%. So now all of a sudden, that entire $6,000, I get paid 12%, and it would cap out at 20%. Now, the thing about it is that all of a sudden, what motivates a top performer is, I know that when I'm at a 20% commission, each and every dollar that I make from now on, Russell's paying me more money, right? But and I know that on Monday I come in and I'm starting back at 10% again. Okay, I need things to be able to motivate me. So all of a sudden now, guess what happens? Let's say I've maxed out my commission on a Thursday. Well, I'm making 20%. I put up $20,000 in sales. I've made $4,000 that week. Okay, but I know that one more sale, okay, a $5,000 sale pays me $1,000 now. Whereas on Monday, that same $5,000 sale, guess what? It only pays me $500. So now all of a sudden, my Friday, my Thursday, my Friday, and Saturday, I come in and work twice as hard, because I want to make sure that I capitalize on that commission that's there, that's available. And so it's one of the best ways to be able to really motivate your sales guys is make sure that you've got things on a sliding scale. Make sure that every single week you start that over. If you don't, it builds up, and all of a sudden you're paying everybody 20-25% on every single sale that they make, whereas that you're just not getting the motivation for them to come in and for them to work hard, because they know that, gosh, next Monday I'm going to make $1,000 on that sale, regardless if I do it today or tomorrow. And obviously we all know that having money today is better than having money tomorrow. Let me get my calculator out and make sure, but we know that. And so that drives and that motivates your sales guys to come in and to push harder and harder each and every week.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. Like when we relaunched our mini call center, we set up our structure and had everything going. And the very first week that after you had trained them and they had this big huge spike in volume, they were excited. They didn't look close enough at the numbers, and Kimberly ended up missing her 20% commission by like $500. And she's like, "Oh, it's not a big a deal." And then we stopped saying, "No, it is a big deal. Let's look at the math." And we showed her the math. And if she would have closed one, even a small, like $1,000 deal, she would have made an extra like $1,400 for the entire week because of the increase in commission. And that's a lesson that after they learn it once, they never forget it. And now it's like every day they're looking at that, they're like, man, if I got one more deal, instead of me, and we made a little spreadsheet where they can type in and see what it looks like. Like if I make a $5,000 deal, what I do, boom, all of a sudden like, oh, I make an extra $800 like for the entire week. And suddenly what happens is, like you said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're going crazy. And Saturday, they're here dialing, and they're looking at time zones and who's still awake. Oh, someone's awake in Australia. I'm dialing, because if I get one more deal, man, that's an extra $1,000 I get, it becomes huge for them. And then, like you said, Monday it resets over, and it starts the process again. And it's, I think it's one of the big driving forces of how you really get the consistent volume you want. It's kind of like in college, I don't know if you ever donated plasma. I wasn't big into that, but my roommate was big into plasma. And the very first time you go in, they give you like $15. And the second time they give you like $35. And then the third time they give you like 10. But then the fourth time it's like 45. And so he kept coming back because the next time is the big hit. The next time is like I get the big payment, and then it reset back over to 10. But it kept him consistently going in every single week because he knew that no matter where he was at, the next one was the big one. And so it kept motivating him to keep going in, and for a year, he probably still does it to this day, as far as I know. But he was giving us plasma all the time because the way that the payment structure was built out. So I think it's a big, important part for everyone to play with.
It makes a huge difference. And your D&I personalities are driven and motivated because of this type of a commission structure. This is something that's helping them to tap into that driver, that dominant trait that they have. It helps push and it helps drive in that direction. And so that's something that's really, really important to know and understand. That as you do that, it builds and drives the right people in there. So that's one of the first things you want to get set up, along with your phones, your headsets. The next thing, you need to be in a position that with those specific measurable results that you can look at what the statistics are. And statistics are critical to be able to track and understand what's happening on a sales floor. There's a few things that we tracked that were really, really important. Obviously, number one is overall sales volume. If somebody's numbers were where they were supposed to be, the rest of the things that I list out here, nobody cared. Okay, about what the people, as far as the statistics and the results. Now, somebody's sales volume, if it wasn't where it's supposed to be, what we want to do is we want to go down and we want to look at what else is happening there. So we look at how much time is spent on the phone. Okay, number of dials being made each day, and also obviously the time on premise, the time at work. Where are they spending their time and what's happening when they're on the sales floor. There's a lot of different ways to track this. With a phone system, Russell, when we had our big sales floor, we had a fabulous phone system, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cost me a little bit of money.
A lot of money. Okay. and the thing of it is that with a phone line driven into your office from Vonage, you can get all these numbers too. Okay. You can know and understand how many dials somebody's made, how long they've been on the phone. You can have those numbers pulled right out immediately. You can also do it. I do a lot of calling through Google Voice, and if you take a look at this Google Voice screen that we have here, you can know exactly in a week how many calls that I've made. Over the course of time that I've used this particular Google account, I've made almost 14,000 phone calls out of this Google Voice account. I know and understand how much time I've spent. I spent 24 minutes on the phone with this phone number and 6 minutes with that phone number and 1 minute with that phone number. I can have those results pulled up immediately and know right where my salespeople are at. So whatever the phone system that you set up, and again, it can be something as simple as having somebody with a Gmail account tied into Google Voice and a corded headset. You can get those results. It's not a difficult thing to have those statistics in front of you because we want to make sure that we're giving our salespeople every opportunity to be successful. Salespeople need structure. They can't just be thrown out there and just say, hey, here's a stack of leads, go and run with it. Don't let them convince you otherwise.
They're good salespeople. They'll try to convince you of it.
They're salespeople, okay? And gosh, call it the American way, whatever we want to. They want to get away with doing what the least amount as possible, okay? They've got to have structure. They need to have that. And what happens is when they have that structure, they really thrive. And so make sure that you set your expectations with your salespeople right from day one. Set a schedule based upon the most effective hours to call. Now, with each individual business owner that we're dealing with, we're going to take a look at this and we'll give you some suggestions exactly when your salespeople should be calling. For us, because we weren't calling business to business, the very best hours for us were to be calling from 9 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock in the morning. It was amazing how many people we would contact in the morning that wanted to make money. Okay, and then what we would do is we would take a 3-hour break. Remember, we're in Mountain Time. Okay, so at 3 o'clock we would come back, and that would be 5 o'clock East Coast time. And we would come in. We would work from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night. And so we'd put in our last 5 hours at that time frame. So we would be calling from 5 o'clock, till 9 o'clock East Coast time. And by the time we leave from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, it would be 7 o'clock California time, Pacific time. And we would try to catch the people at home at that point. Now, if you're selling business to business with your product, and again, this is something that we'll work with you specifically on. But if you're selling business to business, you want to be talking to people during business hours. There's no reason for you to keep your guys around till 8 o'clock at night because nobody's going to be there unless you're East Coast and you're trying to tap into those people on the West Coast. So we'll talk about that. But take a look at your schedule and when the people that you deal with are going to be around, they're going to be in front of their phone, that they're going to be available, and set your schedule along those lines. Hold them accountable for their results. Now, just to give you a little bit of an example of what we did, our expectations when on our big sales floor, and these are great expectations as far as benchmarks that people needed to hit. We wanted them to produce $7,000 minimum in personal sales each and every week. The reason we wanted them to do that is in Boise, Idaho, the commission scale, this commission structure that we were on, it provided them with a good lifestyle. They were happy. They were excited to come into work. They knew that, gosh, I'm going to make, $60,000, $70,000 at a minimum by coming in and working at this place to build and grow my own family and do those types of things that I want to do. We expected them to do 100 dials per day. Now, the great thing about these leads that Russell's driving in is because the leads are so qualified and following that same system, they're probably not going to have to put in that many dials, but dials are critical, and calculating what those dials need to be based upon the leads is something that they need to be, that we're going to talk about and that they need to be aware of and that you need to be tracking. 500 dials per week, that's really not that difficult for somebody to do, especially when you're down through your leads and gosh, 50, 70 of the people don't even pick up the phone, okay? It's not talking about a lot. 4 hours of talk time every single day. Now, yes, what do you do with the other 4 hours at your work? Well, there's a lot of things that happen. There's trainings that go on. There's research on maybe the particular prospect that you're looking at talking to. There's other things that happen throughout the day. So actual time on the phone boils down to about 4 hours of talk time is what we wanted, what we expected. Half the day that, gosh, you're there to be selling on the phone. Half the day needs to actually be on the phone. That's just what we expected. And then having them run 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week. Now, this next part, this is where things really get critical, and it's all about hiring superstars. I mean, Russell, what kind of difference did we have from the top guys that we had on our floor? What made them superstars? Why were they so good?
There's a lot of reasons why, but you look at there was a big gap, right? The top guys like you and Robbie or Randy and stuff like that, were doing, you guys were taking home $250,000 or more a year in commissions, so which means you were putting up $1 million plus by yourselves in personal volume. Then down the bottom scale, you get guys who can't pay enough, sell enough to feed their family, and there's this huge range. And I have my philosophies on what makes a superstar, but I'm excited to hear yours as well. But I think a lot of it are just people that are hungry, that they have the vision like you were talking about. They know this is what I want to do, and they're going after it, and they're trying to hit the numbers. You get one or two superstars, you're pulling a couple $1 million a year off that, versus having to have 60 guys. You have the whole wide range.
So really what this process is instead of us getting all the dead weight, which we carried a lot of dead weight with 60 sales guys. We probably had, and this is, it's the Pareto principle, 80% of the money was made by 20% of the people. Okay, that we had a lot of people there that were just dead weight, and the value with the way Russell's driving in the leads, and then the way that we're hiring and bringing in people is instead of carrying that dead weight, we're just saying, hey, you know what? It's not worth the headaches. It's not worth the problems with that other 80% of the people. Let's just find the very best people, bring them in, and build that.
And just find the best leads. It's kind of we try to get the cream to rise to the top, right? On the lead side, on the sales side, because now our goal before was $7,000 per week from a person. Nowadays we want $20,000, $30,000 per person, because best leads, best people, and just everything.
If Kimberly and Troy aren't hitting $25,000 a week, they're disappointed, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's not even worth our time to play with at that point.
If you had two people that were bringing an extra $14,000 a week for you, gosh, that's nice. But is that something you really drive, you really push? No, but gosh, now I got two people that are bringing in 50, 70, 100 grand a week for me. Gosh, we take that.
Let's focus a little bit more energy at this part of our business. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and this happened to us. This was definitely a learning curve for us. Thad Silgman says this, but he says, I'd much rather have an empty seat than an empty suit. Okay, don't be tied into, gosh, I have to hire, and hire the wrong person. Take the time to hire the right people. don't hire somebody that's empty, that's not in the right point, the right position, the right place in their lives to actually just fill up a seat in your office. Don't hire somebody that says that they've done sales before. Don't hire somebody that's your buddy just because they're your buddy and because you like them. Hire the right people to put in there, and this is how you do it. Don't keep people on board who aren't reaching their numbers. Don't let an empty desk motivate you to hire the wrong person. Now, I think everybody out there who's ever been in business has at least seen or heard of the disc profile. A lot of people have heard about that, and I think the disc profile is awesome. It's incredible. When I'm looking for a salesperson, okay, I want somebody who's going to be a high D, high I type person. I want somebody who's going to be influential, somebody who's going to be dominant, somebody who's results driven, somebody who's friendly, enthusiastic, optimistic. I want all these types of people. Now, you can do a couple of different things. You can go out and you can just run an ad for salespeople, and you can say, hey, I'm looking for salespeople, come in and I'll hire you, and we'll test you and we'll see if you're a DI. And you can go to the discprofile.com and you can pay $36 every single time that you look at possibly hiring somebody to make sure that they're a high D, high I, or we can actually do a couple of things to weed them out and find them right from the beginning. The very first thing that you do is you've got to put in the right ad. It's critical to make sure that number one and most importantly, I'm looking for the right people, the right ad to put into this particular sales position. When we wrote our ads, we'd write them, and there'd be something along these lines. It's going to say, hey, we're looking for sales superstars. If you're not a top performer, don't even call. Our average performers make between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. Our superstars make well over $200,000 a year. This position is only for the best salespeople. Please call Robbie and let me know why we should hire you. And then you put your phone number in there. Now this is great because number one, it's going to weed out a lot of your customer service people. For this position, I don't want somebody who's customer service. Russell, you've got customer service people, don't you?
Very different mindset.
Totally. When we look at the disc profile,
yeah.
your customer service people are going to fall in as CNS people, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a totally completely. I don't want CNS people. I don't want customer service. I think that's what the CNS almost stands for is customer service in the disc profile. I might get it.
I've never heard that before.
Okay.
That's good.
but it really is. That's what happens. That's the type of people. And there's nothing wrong with those types of people.
We need them.
You just don't want them for your salespeople. So that's the first thing is placing that ad.
I love the attitude because if you look at a performer, this is gonna make them be just standing call let us know why we should hire you. They're thinking I gotta sell this guy and why I should hire me. I'm the best. You look at the superstars, that motivates them, and other people that aren't, that freaks them out. They're avoiding that the plague, where the right person is challenged by that and they want in. I'm a $200,000 a year person. I'm gonna call them and explain why I'm them. Why I'm that person, and it definitely attracts the right kind of person.
It weeds them out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding those right people. And again, instead of us carrying a bunch of dead weight, instead of us having 55 guys that are dead weight and 5 guys that are making money, it really just finds the very, very best people. Yeah. So the next thing that happens, okay, so I've got my phone number there, and there's a lot of different places you can place the ad. We had tons and tons of success with placing the ad on Craigslist. We did traditional newspaper advertising. Another place is that if you have current team members and you know somebody that, gosh, they might be a high D, a high I, don't just hire somebody because they, that they're a current team member, but don't be afraid to bonus your current team members for bringing in the right people. We had a lot of referrals, and some of our best people. Ben came because he knew Randy, because Ben Ben was a sales superstar for us. Derek came because he knew, and so it was just finding. Don't be afraid to bonus those current team members.
You spend time with people that are similar to people you like, and usually superstars hang out with other superstars. They always talk about your income is the average of your 5 closest friends, and so most salespeople know other good salespeople. They hang out with them. They're selling each other on what movie to go to, all that kind of stuff, and so it's good.
All the time. Look for that. The other thing too, when we look for this, and you're not necessarily going to be placing the ad here, But something that's critical, always be on the lookout for talent. I've hired people because I've walked into Best Buy and I get somebody who I know and I understand that just by talking with them that they're going to be a high D, a high I personality. Okay, and what I will do with those types of people is I'll give them my business card. Okay, and I'll refer them to that ad. Hey, I've got an ad on Craigslist. I might even have a link directly to the ad on my business card. Okay, I've got this. Call this number. Okay, look at this. If it's something that possibly you want to take a look at and you want to move forward, always be on the lookout. Whether it's Best Buy, a furniture store, Nordstrom's, there's so many people out there that are great salespeople. That, gosh, you take a guy at Best Buy who has that ability to make 200 grand a year and he's making $10 an hour at Best Buy. You can change his life and do some incredible things for a young kid who wants to do some of those things. The whole way that I got into this industry in the first place was because somebody found me selling cameras at a camera store a long time ago. But that's how I found out about this industry. Was that somebody gave me a business card and they said, call me. Okay, I think there's some potential here with you. I think there's some things that you can do. And it's turned into what I've done as my profession because somebody was out looking as he was going in and buying a camera for somebody. So now that I've placed the ad, I've got it there. The next thing I want to do is I want to have my phone interview, and I'm gonna forewarn you guys that you might have some of your HR people that might freak out a little bit about this phone interview because it's not traditional. The very first thing I do is I get on the phone with them and I just ask them some very, very basic questions, interview questions, like what's your experience, what's your education, how'd you perform in your last sales job? I just want to get them talking, and I want to listen to their energy, their stage presence, their voice. I want to hear how they sound on the other end of the phone because that's what your prospects are going to be hearing. I want to hear that. I want to know and understand what that is. Then what I do is I ask them just a very simple question that it talks about in the interview or in the ad. I say, Russell, tell me why you're a top performer. And all of a sudden, it's kind of back to that old, you walk into a sales job and they have a pencil and they say, hey, sell me on why I should buy this pencil. Okay. And they're kind of thinking that in the back of their heads, okay, that, oh, I've got to sell myself on why I'm so good. Now, this is the part where you find your D and your I personalities, okay? It's really the defining moment in the entire interview process. And this is where, I'm going to tell you, this takes some time to find the right people, the right sales superstars. But don't hire an empty suit just because you have an empty seat. So they take time and they just build themselves up, and they say how great and how wonderful they've been and how they've just been top performers and how they've just excelled at every aspect in every job. And I've never had somebody on a resume for a sales job or talking to them just be like, yeah, I don't get along well with people and I don't work with, I'm not friendly, Yeah. Okay, the people want to know and understand, and they just build themselves up. So they've got this great big ego, and then what you do is you just crush their ego. you just and this sounds harsh, but what I do is I reject them.
No matter what they say, right?
I don't care if I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to hire this guy. This guy is perfect. This is the most wonderful sales trainer I've ever. Doesn't matter what they say. Okay, I reject them and say, gosh, I'm just not hearing superstar here. No matter what they say. Okay, and you get a couple of different responses. Okay, the one response and the majority of people that respond say, okay, well, thanks for your time. Okay, now obviously, if I'm doing phone sales and somebody just simply says, hey, you just told me how good you are, I don't think you are that good. Sorry. And they say, okay, and they hang up the phone. What's going to happen the first time they're on the phone with your prospects and the prospect says, gosh, I'm not really sure about you. I'm not really sure about your product. The prospect is going to say, okay, well, wish you the best. Do you want my business card? Okay. That's exactly what's going to happen with that prospect. They're not going to be a sales superstar. They're not that D. They're not that I personality that you're looking for. Now, on the flip side, the first time that this happened to me, and it's kind of interesting. We're talking with Kimberly a little bit about this, and Kimberly, when we did this, she said, "Are you not paying attention? Did you not hear what I just said?" The first time that somebody did this to me, we went through this whole process, and he said, "Gosh, Robbie, you know, I'm 21, 22 years old. Robbie, I'm just not hearing, you know, superstar. I'm not hearing top performer." And I said, "Well, apparently you want to make less money." And the HR person was like, "Okay, hey, we want you to take the next interview." Okay, all of a sudden, because if I'm that afraid of rejection, I'm not going to be a good sales candidate. I'm not going to work out well. And what that does is immediately, within 5 minutes of a phone interview, I found somebody who's my I personality. Chances are that them falling out of that category are pretty small. Now, so we listen to their response, and their response needs to be, do you want to make less money? Are you stupid? I've had people tell me that before. Are you stupid? You're exactly who I want. Okay. I've had other people say, "Are you deaf? Did you not hear what I just said?" Okay. I want some ego here. I want them to tell me that, because when they tell me that, I know that I'm getting somebody that if I've got them on the phone and somebody says, "I don't think, you know, for whatever reason or another, now this isn't for me. No, I want to wait on it. No, I need to think about it. You know, it's too much money." The first time they get rejected, are they just going to hang up the phone, or are they going to say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna dial another lead, Russell," or are they going to say, "No, apparently you didn't hear what I just said." Okay, and we walk them through that process. That gives you the ability to really find the right people that you want, and finding the right people with the right leads. All of a sudden, 2 people can do what 60 people were doing before. It makes all the difference in the world. So once you find your DI personality type, now I'm also going to tell you, and something that I think is very, very valuable, once I've gotten to this point and I've found that person that says, "Gosh, Robbie, are you deaf?" Okay, I still want to, and at that point, I think it's worthwhile to bring them in and to pay the $36. You can get bulk discounts on a disc personality profile. I think it's worth that in the hiring process to take just a minute, go ahead and do a disc personality profile with them, and just make sure that they really fit into that DI personality. I haven't ever had somebody that has gone through that process and hasn't been a high D, high I personality. But it's a nice thing for you to have, because the better that you can communicate with your salespeople, the better everything is going to move.
I remember Chet Holmes, I was doing a project with him, and I had my initial call with him, and he's like, "Yeah, it sounds really good. Take this profile and I'll call you back." And he forced me, before he could do a second call on this project, take the profile, because he didn't want to work with me unless I was Dean and I as well. And so I think it's key, like, because sometimes people can fake their way through an interview or whatever. It's hard to beat that test, because it doesn't make any sense when you're taking it. You know what I mean? And it's worth the investment after that point.
Well, and not only that, you know, now Chet Holmes, he knows how to talk and how to communicate. Whether you're a D, an I, an S, a C personality, now Chet Holmes knows how he can relate to you and how he can motivate you to accomplish whatever it is he wants. Because the better I can communicate with somebody, the more effective our relationship is going to be. Okay, and so it allows you to be able to do this. I bring the people in. We do a disc test. Explain the overall business. We set clear-cut expectations and guidelines. They know from day one what's expected of them. Makes all the difference in the world. The last thing in the world you want to do with a sales guy is you want to bring them in. You want to get them all set up and all accustomed to something, and then change things on them. For whatever reason or another, sales guys do not do well with change. Make sure that you've got the expectations and the guidelines set out from day one, and they do wonderful things for you. The last thing, as far as actually hiring, and I do this every time I interview somebody, is I want to make sure I understand what makes that individual tick, why they're here, what's motivating them, because we all have our motivating factors. You guys all saw that house that Russell's looking at. Okay, that huge, beautiful house. Okay,
that's my motivation.
I know what Russell's motivation is, and if I come in and I talk to Russell, I know enough about Russell, because we've been friends for long enough, that I know that his family is a huge motivation to him, and if I can understand that these are things that are important to Russell, I know how to better communicate with Russell. I know the things that he's looking for, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, whether it's spending more time with their family, coaching their kids' football game. And we talk a lot about these types of things that we do with the prospects throughout the sales process. You guys will see that in the set and the close script with those videos. But the exact same thing happens with your salespeople. If I know and I understand what motivates my sales guys, I can help them to achieve it. And it goes back to that old Zig Ziglar quote, I can have whatever it is I want in my life if I help enough people get exactly what it is that they want. And so if I look at my sales guy and I say, hey, I know and understand what motivates you, what drives you, I know where you want to be. I know that Kimberly wants to homeschool her child when he turns 5. I know that Troy wants an RV and he wants to go to all the national parks. I know these things that motivate him. Now all of a sudden I can do things and I can work within those parameters to help motivate my sales guys at the same time. Learn what makes each individual on your team why they tick, why they're there, what's going to help them to build and grow their own personal lives. And when you take that as the owner, as the entrepreneur, and they know and understand that, gosh, I'm here to help Kimberly, eventually be able to homeschool her son, or I'm here to help Troy get that RV, or I'm here to help Randy to be able to golf all over the country, or I'm here to help Russell get that dream, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If I know what makes them tick and they know that I'm interested in them and that I'm there to help them to reach and exceed and facilitate and help them with their goals, it builds long-term success. It builds longevity with your employees. It's something that one of the reasons that Russell and I, we're still doing stuff together is Russell learned a long time ago what types of things make me tick. And that's why even after our call center, went away, that we're still doing stuff together is because Russell took the time to know and understand those types of things with me. Know what makes each individual sales guy on your team, know and help them understand what makes them tick. So that there's really one more key factor that I really want to talk about, and that's how to deal with a top performer. Okay.
This is important for the entrepreneurs in the room.
This is critical because so many entrepreneurs that I've run into are great entrepreneurs. They've built great businesses, and they have no idea, they have no clue of how to deal with a top tier salesperson. And what happens a lot of the times, they just butt heads, and there's problems. And Russell, we ever have butting heads about the sales floor? That never happened, right?
It's amazing, because when someone starts making a lot of money, they are producing a ton of money, and they're responsible for a lot of it. But in their mind, like without them, you're useless. And so it's like this thing where you're like, no, I'm like, this is my business I create, and they're like, but I'm the one bringing in the money, and it causes definite. I don't even know the right word for it, but there's definitely issues that come up, especially when you have 2 or 3 or 60 people. It magnifies the problem. So I had an awesome opportunity to learn and grow a lot through that process. And I think that it's important those people know, because otherwise you can get steamrolled. People come in like, hey, I should be getting 50% commission. And what do you say? Like, whatever it is, like you got to understand how to be prepared for that, because it will happen. Especially with hiring, expect it. If this doesn't happen, you got the wrong guys.
you haven't hired D&I personalities. You've hired the wrong types of people. Yeah. You want this to happen, okay? So that there's a couple of things, and top producers have a number of attributes that can translate into restlessness. They're original, they're intelligent, they're full of ego, and they generally get frustrated in most companies and end up starting their own company. A lot of the times they have the same ideas, the same mentality as the entrepreneur. And there's a way to work with them and to rein that in, to pull that back, to make sure that you're working with the right types of people. So this is going to sound funny, okay? But the key to working with a top performer is never, ever tell them no. Now, Russell, I tell you that, and you never, ever tell your top performers no. Russell's sitting there and like, I'm going to be broke. I'm never going to make any money. Okay. Obviously, okay, one of the things to make sure that you understand and realize is that just because you're not telling them no doesn't mean you're telling them yes either. You've got to redirect their energy or give them some hurdles to jump through. I'm going to go through just a couple of examples that we can talk about and how it'll work. So let's say I have my top performer come in and he says, gosh, you know what, Russell, if we had better communication between all of our departments, I believe our sales would increase. Okay. Now, first of all, if that kind of sounds like a good thing, right? Gosh, let's all communicate better and we're all going to make more money, right? Well, if all of a sudden, if I just tell my top performer, yeah, sure, run with it, that's great. The top performer, he starts taking that, and guess what? You give them an inch, they take a mile. They keep run with it and run with it and run with it. And they ask, so can I put that program together for you? So all of a sudden, we think as, the entrepreneur, as the business owner, well, of course I want better. I want better communication between all my departments. And it just obviously it makes sense that if we had better communication, I'd make more money, right? Okay. Yeah. So we look at that and we think of that, and the entrepreneur, they say, well, sure, yeah, go run with it. Again, if you do that, you start to build a foundation with that top performer that they're just going to keep running, and they're going to keep running. And so the way to deal with it is, gosh, that is such a great idea. Tell you what, you increase sales, you get 3 additional sales each month for the next 3 months, and I'll let you run with it. Now what I've done is I've taken the control back. Okay, I haven't told my top performer no. Okay, in fact, I've told him yes. I told him yes. I want you to create that program for me. But instead of just saying yes, go run with it, I've given him something to do, a hurdle to jump over, a hoop to go through, and he understands and he realizes that I'm still the guy that's in control of the entire process. Another example is your top performer comes in and says, hey, these leads, they're terrible. Does that ever happen with a sales guy?
That was like the worst conversation. These leads are no good. Same leads you called last week.
They're no different. Okay. What's changed? Your mindset.
Yeah,
okay.
Between your ears is the only issue.
Absolutely. Okay. Or they might say, gosh, the promo that we're running, it's terrible. And the thing that can happen, and it's so interesting when you put it back on the sales guy, if they didn't like, say, the way that the ad copy was written or whatever it is, but the very first thing to do is don't get defensive. With a top performer, you start getting defensive, and they can see that, I don't know, that smoke coming out of your ears, they see that. Well, because they're a top performer, because they're dominant types of personalities, they're going to fire right back. And nobody ever gets anywhere. When you start arguing, you start getting defensive, and you're both defensive, nobody wins. You both lose is what happens. But something to come back and say, I designed the one that you're criticizing, or I got those leads that you're criticizing, but where would you like to get leads from? Okay, so now all of a sudden, I take ownership for it. That they understand that, but at the same token, I tell them, gosh, I put it back on them, and I let them take some responsibility for it as well. And what happens, because the sales guys don't know how to write a better promo piece, the sales guys don't know how to drive leads in. The sales guys understand and realize that, gosh, it really is in between my ears. It has nothing to do with the leads. It has everything to do with me. But by just saying, hey, where do you think we ought to get it from? And by not getting defensive, it makes a world of difference with your sales guys, with your top performers. The next one, just a good way to drive and motivate a top performer, comes in and he says, gosh, I could definitely increase sales. If we do X, Y, you know what? That is awesome. I totally think you can too, but let me tell you what, talk is cheap. I want to see it. Let's see those numbers on that board. How about next time I come down tomorrow that you've got those numbers on the board that you've talked about? I'll believe you. We'll run with it. But talk's cheap. Let's see it actually happen. Let's see it actually get put together. And that scoreboard, that competition. Yeah. Russell talks about. I'll bet, Russell, I could ask you about guys that you wrestled in high school and maybe even junior high that maybe beat you. You still remember what the score is. We talked about that. And talk is cheap. I'll believe it when I see it. And that competitive attitude that they'll say, well, okay, I'll show you. Okay, you want them to have that ego. You want them to have that competitive attitude. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah, and either one or two things will happen. One, they do and they make more money, or two, they don't and they shut up. You know what I mean? So it's like you win both ways.
I want somebody to come in and be a big talker and make me a lot of money all day long. You can talk and tell me how great you are, and I'll listen to you. Just keep producing, okay? Couple of things. The more you challenge a top performer, the more you encourage them to overachieve. The more challenges that they have, the more obstacles, the more hurdles that they have to jump through, the more they're going to achieve for you. The last thing, and again with a top performers are very, very ego driven. When they achieve things, don't be in a position that you don't remember to compliment them. They want that, they need that, they thrive. I thrive on compliments. I want them. I want you to tell me how it worked out, and especially when something was good. I came in and did that training with Russell, and gosh, I must have texted Russell, every week for 2 weeks. How are they doing? Because I want to. I want that. I thrive on it. I love it. So do your top performers. They want to hear how good they're doing, and don't over compliment them. But when they reach and exceed their goals, make sure that they know that you've noticed. Make sure that you compliment them. And it can be simple things. It can be an extra bonus. It can just be like, hey, great job. I saw that you blew your numbers away last week. They want that. They need it. They thrive on it. And in a lot of respects, it makes a bigger difference than even a paycheck sometimes. It was amazing. We would bring in CDs or DVDs, and we would use those with our sales guys when somebody exceeded their sales performance, and they didn't care that they just made $1,000, but that I was complimenting them and I was giving them a new CD. You give them an iTunes gift card or something, or it's amazing.
The award, yeah, it's the
recognition. Absolutely. I have a TV that I won, and I tell everybody, it's a flat screen TV that I won. But before I even started working with Russell, and anybody who, I won that. That's still a source of pride for me, because it's something that showed that I accomplished something and I won something. They want that. They want that recognition. They want that compliment, and they want it more than just in the score. The scoreboard does a great job, but when they reach and exceed their goals, make sure that you go that extra mile to compliment them and let them know that. And that's really, as far as getting things set up, the basic process, the mindset, the ideology that you need to have. But behind working with the sales guy, working with the top performers, hiring them, bringing them in, and building a call center, it's a real simple thing if you follow those steps that we talked about, that we walked through. Russell, if we would have done things that way 6 years ago when I first met you, we probably never would have gone through the headaches and the hassles and you and I would have continued to make a ton of money together because the headaches and the hassles aren't there, are they?
Yeah. No, we definitely learned a lot. Hopefully for you guys, this will shortcut a lot of pain that we had to go through to kind of figure out the right path. And it's fun now that I'm having a chance to kind of rebuild it after knowing these things and structuring them the right way, how much more simple and smooth and easy things have been. And hopefully this will shortcut that headache for a lot of you guys, because you're right, after you have those things in place and you understand how to work with the people the right way and how to motivate them, they want to perform for you. They want, nothing pleases them more than to make you happy. It doesn't always,
it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so...
It doesn't always seem that way, because the way that a lot of times the top performers approach you, it doesn't seem that way, but that's what they want. They want the recognition, and they want you to be impressive. And if you are, it goes a long way. It's pretty cool.
They love it. All righty.
Awesome. Well, that's the first, obviously, the first thing for you guys as entrepreneurs. Now, there's a lot of other stuff in this package for you guys. The biggest one, really quickly, to talk about the set script and the close script, so they know what to do with that with their people.
Okay.
If we can kind of cover that really quickly, it'd be helpful.
The next part of the video that you guys are going to see, you're going to see the set script and the close script, and we've walked through this, and I've walked through it also with your salespeople, that they're going to see this. My recommendation would be, number one, for you guys to sit down and obviously watch the rest of the videos at least once. I don't think that it's something you guys need to learn and you guys need to know in depth and detail. I always compare it kind of with the entrepreneur. that's kind of like being a general contractor. The general contractor doesn't have to know how to frame and roof the house and put the plumbing and the electrical work into the house, but he has to know that, gosh, that wiring, that it looks right, that, gosh, the framing, that it looks right, and that wall is supposed to be there, and that yes, that the roofing got done. And so to have a good grasp on how it all works, how it's all put together, the next videos are gonna dive into a lot of detail on exactly how the set process works, how the close process works. And so I would recommend watching that at least once as the business owner. The next thing that I would say too is that for your first couple, I'd say probably 3 to 4 weeks worth of trainings, I would have your salespeople, obviously number one, first day that they're hired, that they're ready, once you've gone through that process, you've got the right people in the room, to sit down and to watch the training videos, to watch the set video, to watch the close video, and week 2 to do the exact same thing. And at the end of that, to write down what they learned that was different, because they're going to have a whole different experience, a whole brand new set of results that they're going to see and they're going to experience because they've been on the phone for a week. So Monday week 1, you do that. Monday week 2, you do that, and then ask them how are they going to apply the things that they learned week 2 to what they learned going in. Do the same thing the 3rd week, but by the 4th week they should have a pretty good handle. I would still recommend them going back over that training, watching those videos, seeing and understanding those things that we talked about, at least over time, once every couple of months. The reason behind it, I've heard and been over and gone through these trainings on the set, on the script, literally thousands of times. I've trained on them, had other people train me on them, and every single time that I've trained on them, maybe I don't learn something new, but I remember something that, gosh, I didn't do that last week, and that's such a great thing to say. That's such a great thing to put out there to work with them, that I remember that and I bring that back up, and all of a sudden that next week it gets me another sale. So by going back over that and going back to the basics all the time. Hey guys, this is a football. Going back to, hey, this is how we make money. I remember when I played football, and if we'd have a bad game, my coach wouldn't come in. He wouldn't put in a whole bunch of fancy trick plays or anything like that. He'd go back to, guys, this is how we block. This is how we tackle. This is how we run. This is how we throw the ball. This is how we catch the ball. All the basics. And so one of the things that you've got to look at and you've got to understand is that by always going back to the basics and remembering what got them to where they're at, it makes all the difference in the world. Kimberly and Troy, when I sat down with them yesterday, said, gosh, we've been calling for a couple of months now, and now that I've had that experience, this is great because we went back over a lot of the same things we did on day 1, and Troy walks out, and what's the first call you get from Troy?
Yeah, $8,000 later.
$8,000 sale that all of a sudden, by just remembering those things all the time and going back to the basics, it makes all the difference in the world.
You think about any kind of training, like you go and you get a new skill and immediately you apply it. Like we had the next day after you came in, $36,000, just boom. And then people get cocky or whatever it is, and they're like, oh, I know how to do this, and they start like improvising, start changing it, and you watch any kind of skill, it jumps like this, and it drops and drops and drops and drops. And for most people, they don't retrain it; just it'll keep going until eventually it just kind of dies out. Whereas you look at like a good training system, you have that initial training, you get the initial surge of success, it starts stabilizing, starts downfalling. You do the second, you retrain on it again and retrain on it. And look at it over a year period of time, you're going like this. But if you just do it once and then it fades and it drops, then you got this little thing and it dies and it ends. And so when we had 60 salespeople, you did trainings every single week, back to the fundamentals, and it's going to be annoying for these guys sometimes because I don't want to go through it again, but they need to keep going through it and consistently going through it because it brings them back, it grounds them, it re-gives them the tools and the things they need, and you'll just keep seeing that just jump and jump and jump. So I think that's a big key, is use the tools we're giving you guys because that's how you keep people progressing and getting better and better, and not just stabilizing and then dying. And we want these things obviously to work for you guys long term. So
if Vince Lombardi is telling professional football players, hey guys,
is.
This is a football, just so you know, okay, this is the goal line, there's so much that we can learn from that. And if we're not going back to those basics, they're forgetting what the football is. They're forgetting what basic things they need to be doing on a day in and day out basis if you're not continually training on them. And be pig-headed about your training. Train have your training schedule, and that's what we're doing is we're making sure that you've got that training schedule that's put together for your salespeople. Be pig-headed about making sure that they're going through it, and even after they've gone through all the sales training, guess what? Go through it again. Go through it again. They will find things that they learn, things that they pick up, things that they forgot that they were doing that are going to help them to remember and to get more sales and to produce more money for you and for them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Robbie. This has been awesome, and excited for all you guys to go on to the next step and get your people trained.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.